Hi, this is Sarah Harlow, and today we're going to be looking at the Smithsonian American Art Museum and the Renwick Gallery. Both of these are located in Washington, D.C., and they have free admission, which is the privilege of being in the Capitol. Most of the displays are based on American art, and the Renwick is based on American crafts. As we scroll through their homepage, we see their featured exhibitions. The first one they mention is the Doho Su exhibition that is at the Smithsonian, and it features a Korean artist, and you just missed it yesterday. They had a curator tour and dinner at Momofuku, which would have been a great experience. Then we see the No Spectators, the Art of Burning Man exhibition that's going on at the Renwick Gallery. That brings large-scale work from the Desert Show to the nation's capital, and we're going to come back and look at that in just a moment. And then as we keep going down, we see another photograph display at the Smithsonian American Art Museum. Here on their homepage, they show you a featured video, and they have lots of other videos that we'll get to. And this is a great picture of the docents, and it's marking their 50th anniversary for their docents. And then this is a cool part. They link up to Instagram, and we see pictures that people have tagged with Smithsonian and Renwick Gallery and their comments. It makes it a little bit more interactive here on their homepage than most of the other pages are, but it's a great way to see what everyone is talking about. There's a Chihuly piece, there's lots of different things, and it's linking to both the Smithsonian Art Museum and the Renwick Gallery. So we're going to cruise back up here to the Burning Man exhibition, which just looks so cool. It is called No Spectators because at Burning Man exhibition, the expectation is that you jump in and participate. You don't get to stand back and watch. And these massive pieces have been moved into the Renwick Gallery. They're supposed to be there through, part of them are through September, and then part of them are through December and January. It tells you a little bit about Burning Man. Then there's a little video there, and it takes over the entire Renwick Gallery, which is pretty awesome. They're room-sized displays, costumes, jewelry, ephemera. Oftentimes at Burning Man, they build the pieces and then they actually set them on fire. So these are neat that we actually get to see them, and they weren't burned up in the process. There's so many new and kind of experimental pieces that are there. This one was one of my favorites. There's actually a video about this. The entire room is turned into a wooden temple. He covers the entire place with wooden carved pieces. There's lots of color, lots of big shapes that you get to interact with. It's a very modern take on art. This little bear, I watched the video on that one. That's actually covered completely and entirely in pennies, and they're turned on edge so that they actually have like a fur texture to them. So you're encouraged to touch them when they're out at Burning Man. I don't know if you're allowed to touch them in the museum, but they're very textural and you get to interact with the piece that way. As you can see, the pieces even work their way outside the gallery, and they're around, and there they are in real life outside in the desert. So this is a really cool exhibit that would be neat to see. There's one of the artists. They have lots of interviews of the artists, lots of events that you can go, a book talk, jewelry specific events. So it's a really neat event. And then it shows you who the sponsors were, of course. So we'll go back up here to the top. Now, the other part right here under visit, it talks about family friendly activities. These would also apply to like elementary students especially, so that would be fun to take kids to. And it tells you three different things on each floor to interact with, things that you can see. You can see pieces where you're actually looking for things and it tells you what to look for. It's like, oh, look in here and see if you can find his signature that's hiding in there. So it gives you lots of little details to look for, and it's good for the kids to find things to interact with. The next section is art and artists, and when we click on that, it tells you different ways that they are organized here. So you can search for a specific artist. You can browse by category. You can look for specific things in the collection. And there's a couple that I really liked. There was browse artworks by category, which would be useful because I like to teach by category, not by specific artists in general. So when I look for, I was like, oh, I'm going to be teaching drawing. I want my students to see lots of drawings. So I would pull up drawings, and then there's lots of different examples here, and they would see how you can do it with color and how line is important, shading and value, and so it gives them some really clear examples of what that media looks like. And then I also liked being able to explore artists by state. When I first moved to Georgia, I had to learn a lot of the artists that were in my state since I'm not from here. And let's see if I can get it to go. There it goes. And as you cruise down, you see all the states. California has a lot, so they would be a little bit tricky to search through, I think. But as I get down here to Georgia, they don't have very many. So we see some of the Georgia artists, and so that helped me start to learn who the artists were here, what they worked with, and their specific styles, different craftsmen, and it was neat to be able to kind of link in to the Georgia artists as I was starting to teach here in the state. And as I jump down here, I also like this. Which artist shares your birthday? I think this would be a neat way for students to get involved with the artist kind of on a personal level. Oh, that artist was actually born on my birthday. Where is he from? What style did she work in? That sort of thing. They could learn about some specific artists that are on important dates. I like that they also use craftsmen and craft pieces and paintings and drawings. Like they have a mix. It's not just like only paintings. So that's nice for my students to see. The research tab is really focused on specifically research, higher classes, and working on the inventory there. When we jump to the education tab, this is the one everybody wants to see the most. So we're going to look a little bit at this one, and then I'm going to have a separate video that kind of digs a little bit deeper into it. For K-12 teachers, they're going to have this very specifically geared towards K-12 teachers, professional development, video conferences, that sort of thing. Then we see for adult learners, I thought this was interesting. They have house calls for adult learners. If you have a group, they'll send someone out to speak to you about specific art pieces or a part of the show. If your group can't travel to the museum, like in a nursing home or at a church or something like that, and you can do a group. They also have gallery talks in sign language and verbal description tours. And the gallery talks in sign language are geared towards those that use sign language, and then you can interact more thoroughly with the art pieces. And they also have art signs online videos. And they have this where if you need verbal description tours, they have America Insight, and it lets you come in and you can touch the pieces, interact more thoroughly with them. There's some articles here which might be interesting for some of our students to read and understand how they work with the adult learners that need that assistance. I'm sure they would work with students as well. Now, for the students and for us teachers, there's field trips and school tours. Most of us don't live quite close enough to drop in anytime, but they do have school tours set up. There's teacher guides and resources, which is where the bulk of their information is. professional development. They don't really have online classes for professional development. They have all of the workshops that teachers can go to if you live in the area. Classroom video conferences was one that I thought was really interesting. We see that anyone, anywhere, can explore U.S. history and culture through a free interactive video conference. Museum presenters create connections for students. They discuss things with them. They answer questions. It's about a 60-minute video conference, 45 to 60 minutes long. And it gives you categories that you can choose what you discuss. So there's looking at art, exploring exploring history, but using art to talk about it, and then celebrating heritage. And so there's different kind of entry points for students, and it's also helpful maybe even for other teachers to pick up and use artwork that would fit into their curriculum. I like that it's leveled by grade, and then it gives you PDFs that have activities that you can download and questions to ask the students that makes it more interactive. So there's lots of different examples there, and they will set up a conference time with you, and then you can have a discussion, and it's appropriate for 3rd grade through adult learners, so that really fits everyone. Then there's summer institutes. If you've got a week that you could take to go stay up there in DC, you can go to the Smithsonian and do a summer institute with them. I think a lot of the museums offer that, and it's a neat way to start interacting with the museums if you've got the time to be able to do that. And finally, the teacher guides and resources. So we're going to look at this for just a moment, and then I'm going to do one more short video that'll explain a little bit more about it. The teacher guides are in PDF format. Most of them are geared towards specific content areas. Arte Latino is actually all in Spanish. There's science and art, which would help with our STEAM teachers. There's also these content links, and these are more interactive, and they span a lot of different grade levels. There's video series, bottle caps and brushes, and Latino voices, campfire stories. There's lots of different things here that would be helpful for teachers, lots of videos, and we're going to look at that a little bit more in depth. It is interesting to note right here, museum history. This is a good way to, a short little article that would link in with some of their history classes, because they have to learn about a lot of these names. It was actually Andrew Mellon that provided most of the art that got them up and started, and then there was the use of the patent office, that's that building right there, and it became the National Gallery of Art, and then the Smithsonian American Art Museum. That way you really clearly know what they're actually focused on. And so we see that little short article on that history, and so we see that he gave his European art to the National Gallery, and that's where it all got started with John Varden. So a little bit about the history there. Now, we're going to take a quick break and flip over to the other video, and that's going to explain a little bit more about the education PDFs that you can use and the videos and that sort of thing.